Yes, welcome everyone to this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we had for this webinar more than 1,000 registrations, which is clearly an indication of the importance that this topic has. And we hope that you will find the conversation interesting. And we have brought quite interesting speakers today with mixed experiences and expertise. So I believe it will be a very good and interesting webinar. My name is Cosmin Nada, and I am the one of the editorial board members of the European Toolkit for Schools. And before we proceed with the webinar content, I will just make a brief presentation of the toolkit for schools and other relevant resources. So the webinar today is entitled Addressing Bullying and Violence in Schools, Identifying Root Causes and Discussing Effective Solutions. And our objectives for today is precisely to understand these root causes and to think a little bit more in depth about the issue of bullying, because we know that we have so many programs being implemented all over Europe and at international level about bullying, but this issue doesn't seem to be solved, or quite the contrary. In some cases, it seems that it has been worsening, and recent trends have been showing that. So we would like to understand why this is the case, and also what are the core ingredients for a successful anti-bullying program, bullying and cyberbullying. We are considering both dimensions today. So the European Toolkit for Schools, in the framework of which this webinar is organized, was created in 2016, and it is aimed at school leaders, teachers, policymakers, and anybody working with schools, in fact. It seeks to disseminate relevant resources and promising practices. It is important to consider that all the resources that appear in the European Toolkit for Schools are curated by an editorial board, which is formed by education experts and practitioners. The European Toolkit for Schools also have a self-assessment tool that allows schools to know where do they stand when it comes to inclusion and well-being. And this self-assessment tool has been updated with most recent trends in well-being and most recent research findings, and is currently being launched. So it's not yet available, but you can stay tuned, because it will be launched very soon, and then you can use it, and you can learn more about your school, and also get indication of relevant resources that you can use in your own schools and in your own educational practice. And then the European Toolkit for Schools is hosted on the European School Education Platform. And this platform, in the month of May, had as a theme the topic of well-being and resilience in schools, which is very much connected to the topic of today's webinar on bullying and cyberbullying. And also the European Toolkit for Schools has a wealth of relevant well-being resources. And I placed here in this slide, I believe we will be able to share with you these presentations after the webinar, so you can very easily open the different resources that are listed here, because they are linked to the corresponding web pages. I would like to also highlight a series of previous relevant webinars. Since you are joining today's webinar, you might be very interested in these webinars that already took place, and recordings are available online. So we have a webinar on promoting well-being for improved learning outcomes, another webinar on well-being without overload, considering self-care in teaching practices, and more specifically on bullying and cyberbullying, understanding, preventing, and responding to cyberbullying, and another webinar on multi-dimensional issues of school bullying prevention. I would like to call your attention also to the European Education Area page, where you can find a lot of relevant resources on bullying and cyberbullying, and also the recently launched well-being guidelines that were presented by an expert group that was put up by the European Commission. And there are two twin documents, let's say. One document is directed at policymakers, and another is directed at schools, school leaders, and teachers. So this is another relevant resource that I really encourage you to consider. And there is also a series of 7 fact sheets on different topics that have been very useful in the past. These were created by experts from the NESET network, which is the network of experts working on the social dimension of education and training. And some of them, actually, 2 of them are on bullying, specifically what can schools do about bullying and what motivates children who bully, and can they change? And other fact sheets on resilience in schools and also well-being and mental health through education. So again, you will receive these presentations and all the relevant links are here. So after this brief introduction, we can proceed to our presenters. So today we will count with 4 speakers, and I will present them at the time before their presentation. So we will start with Magnus Loftsson, and Magnus is a licensed psychologist and a research manager at Friends. Friends is the leading Swedish organization dedicated to preventing bullying and fostering safe school environments. He serves as the chair of the scientific committee of the World Anti-Bullying Forum, and he has over 30 years of experience in this area, leading numerous research and development initiatives on bullying and violence prevention, covering topics such as health impacts, educational challenges, and societal costs. He has authored multiple reports, articles, and books, and he hopes his innovative, data-driven approaches will shape safer, more inclusive educational spaces. As a frequent speaker and media contributor, he combines his background in psychology, research, and advocacy to drive impactful solutions for safer and more inclusive educational environments. So we are very privileged to have Magnus with us today. And Magnus, you can proceed with your presentation, and you have 20 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much for that introduction, and thank you for letting me talk to you. And thanks to also everybody who is participating. Fantastic that so many are here today and are engaged in this important issue. I have set this head topic, addressing bullying and violence in schools, understanding trends, root causes, and solutions. As already said, I'm the research manager at Friends, and I'm also a licensed psychologist. So let's dive into this. I would like to start by framing the problem. I think that is a very, very important thing to do. What are we actually talking about? I've also been part of a group that had worked with a more inclusive definition of bullying, together with the UNESCO chair and UNESCO and scientific group committee with experts and scientists from this field. And in that work, our conclusion was that this is our suggested proposal for a definition of bullying that is more inclusive, that school bullying is a damaging social process. And I really love that, the damaging social process. It makes harm, characterized by imbalance of power. And this imbalance of power is often driven by societal and institutional norms. We know that it needs to be repeated, or at least often repeated. And I would like also to just mention that things everybody might be aware of that. But when it comes to cyberbullying, it's also enough with one single event to count that as bullying. So because it could be digitally spread and so on. So for example, the health behavior in school-age children that makes these reports for the whole Europe has very increased number of cyberbullying. But I think when you compare that to school bullying, it has also to do with that there is a one-time events counts as bullying, so to say. So that is good to know. But bullying is also considered to be unwanted interpersonal behavior. It could be among students, and it could also involve school personnel in many ways. And it has harmful effects. We know from research that bullying, not in every case, of course, but in some cases, in severe cases, and in cases where children haven't got the right response, this might cause physical, social, and emotional harm to individuals, to groups, and also the wider school community. So not just the children that is involved in the bullying. Throughout the presentation that I will share, I have made some links also if you want to go deeper. So if you later click on those links, you can read the reports or sources. But this is a way of framing the problem. It's, I mean, as we all know, it has been around for a long time. It's a complex issue. Otherwise, I think we should have solved it by now. It's at least 50 years of kind of intense work and research in this field, but it's still a huge challenge for schools and educators and parents and policymakers. Last year we did a report at Friends considering mental health and bullying, and we can see that the mental health problems that children report are increased with the frequency of bullying. The more bullied you are, the more health complaints, psychosomatic complaints children reports. So in this diagram we can see if you're not subjected to bullying, the level of psychological unhealth is around 16% in that group. If you are bullied twice a week or more often, the level of psychological unhealth is like 70% in that group. And if we compare it to the whole group, the whole material, on average, that's 26. So it really has impact on children's mental health in many ways. And that's not surprising if you consider the research in this field. It's really a long historic time that we have followed this. I think that's kind of amazing. But you can see almost causality between bullying, anxiety, poor health, depression, suicidal thoughts, and attempts and self-harm. More than 1/4 of 18-year-olds children's depression is caused or could be related to bullying. It's twice the risk of depression. It also increases with those, as I was already mentioned. You can see from some literature that suicide attempts are 4 times more common among children frequently exposed to bullying, and anxiety and depression due to bullying during childhood constitutes 8 and 10% of the problems in the total population, respectively. And this is from an Australian study where you see how big this problem is for the whole population. So it's an important aspect. It's not the only aspect that make people feel bad, but it explains quite a great of the proportion, especially among young people, of course, but also through adult life. And it has also impact on education. And I think that is also problematic since it's a right for children to have education. We can see from a Swedish study that it's 1.70 times higher risk of failing grades. It applies to every 5th student who has been bullied. Lower educational achievement. Bullying is the biggest risk for school absence among boys compared to other forms of violence against children. I think that is also a striking result. School dropout is 1.5 times more common among children exposed to bullying. And it's the most, in Sweden at least, the most common reason for dropping out of high school among young people who are neither working nor studying. So substantial impact. Okay, and so that's a bit like framing the problem. What is it about? And I would just briefly say something also about the current trends and insights from this field. We know that both traditional school bullying and digital bullying is gendered phenomena, and it's been going on for quite a while. In Sweden, we have seen from the last decade a doubling of traditional school bullying, and it also takes place at the same time as this digital bullying or cyberbullying occurs, and mobile phones goes down in children's age. I think another important trend, I will talk about this more also, is hate speech and polarization, and that targets also things that has to do with harassment and discrimination and vulnerable populations. And I will provide some insights from the Hateless program that's created by Dr. Sebastian Wachs in Germany with his colleagues. So if someone is more interested to dive into that, I also provide a link from the World Anti-Bullying Forum where Sebastian presents hate speech and bullying, two sides of the same coin. It's a great keynote presentation. But I also want to comment on I think, I mean, everybody has followed, I guess, the election in the United States, what's happening there, how adults are treating each other, how grown-ups are talking. We are in also a situation globally with rapid societal changes, the ongoing climate crisis, the AI revolution, and also conflicts that are escalating in many ways in different sides of the world. All these, of course, impact children in many ways. And I think when grown-ups and politicians are also calling each other, name-calling, and putting out hate and polarization in the on primetime media, so to say, this we know that from research that this also affects children in school, and children do similar things towards each other. It's also really a gender phenomena. As boys are most often subjected by other boys. We also know that boys are more often also subjected bullying, also bullying girls. So overall, when you look when children report bullying, boys are the group that is, I think, is more important to also address, and that goes when it comes to violence in general. It's part of also a masculinity problem in many ways. And we can see that the different forms of violence, boys are more exposed to verbal and physical bullying, girls are more exposed to psychological and relational bullying. At least in Sweden, also the bullying among girls are higher when it comes to digital bullying. Boys are more bullied also in gaming, so that is also because the gender division, so to say. So different experiences and different types. And what we can see, at least from our research in Sweden, is that school staff are more likely to see and act on the more visual bullying that occurs among boys, like verbal and physical bullying, and they are less likely to see and act on the psychological or relational or digital bullying that occurs more often among girls. And I think this is also an explanation, if we can see, when we look at the long-term trends in Sweden, boys were more exposed to bullying earlier, but girls are more exposed to bullying now. So that has kind of shifted. And I think also sexual harassment has a key role in this in many ways also, and ideas around masculinity. This is a quotation from Payne and Smith from 2018 when it comes to gender policing. And we know that is also I would say a root cause in the bullying that occurs. They write like this, that students' speech, behavior, and dress are regulated by cultural rules related to the right way to exist in the school environment, and use everyday gender policing practices often fail to draw adults' attention because these behaviors largely align with the institutional values of school, and young people's attitudes about differences are partially formed in a school-based social scene that rewards conformity. So a lot of the bullying and the harassment that goes on, whether the form is in many ways also normalized as part of normalized behavior that just passes, so to say. And I think that is also part of why it keeps on being a problem. I will make some kind of a case study of the Hateless program. And I will give some ideas about this when it comes to hate and polarization that we have a lot of these days. So we also have chosen at Friends to talk more about hate, because when we ask young people how they talk about bullying, a lot of children use the word hate for this phenomena, so to say. They're not saying bullying, they're saying, I got hate, and he give hate, and this kind of ways of talking. So that has pushed us to also go into the hate rhetoric, like statements aimed at devaluing or marginalizing individuals based on group traits, culture, nationality, gender. So it's really close to harassment in many ways. It can have like stereotypes, prejudice, insults, conspiracy theories appearing as direct or indirect messages in the school context, online, in school, reflecting wider societal tensions and norms. And there's a lot of risk factors. It's like group identity, negative norms, lack of empathy, and digital amplification. It grows on the digital environments. And one way of working with prevention is that Hateless promotes awareness about this, builds empathy skills, resilience, and counter speech to foster a supportive school climate. So that's kind of the aim of the program. There's a lot of research behind this program by Dr. Sebastian Wachser with colleagues, and some of the mechanisms and risk of online hate rhetoric for youth that I would like to address is also related to the root causes. I mean, root causes are a big phenomenon, I would say, but just taking a look at these things, I mean, the rapid spread with hate rhetoric spreads quickly with this digitalization that is part of everybody's life nowadays. But also the anonymity and online disinhibition, which seems to be able to say and do and write things online that you wouldn't say face to face, even though people start to say that also face to face, that previously was just online. We see also from our work in schools that this go down in age. What happens when children were like 12, 13, 14 now happens when they are 10, 11, 12. So this is also a reason to act. And all this algorithm influence promote polarizing content. We know that from studies of Meta, Instagram, Facebook, and it can make hate groups and radical ideologies more appealing by offering youth a sense of belonging and purpose. So that is also a danger. We have these echo chambers and filter bubbles in a way that we are more and more also what we are interested in drives children or adults into an environment where we get exposed to more and more of what we seem to be curious on. So that drives this too. Creating echo chambers that limit diverse perspectives and heighten polarization. So I think it's part of our globalized, digitalized world at the moment, and that is not safe for children in many, many ways. Okay, so if we go more into the format and content of this program, the focus is on strengthening skills to prevent hate rhetoric among students, and the implementation is this is designed for teacher to use with all students. 1 week program could be divided also, teaching materials, normal things, 5 modules, and this is the modules and what they are addressing. So I'm happy to share more if you want, but we also are interested in this because it has nice effects: increased knowledge, reduction in hate speech, challenging harmful norms, and it works both on the hate speech that occurs online among students and the hate speech that happens in school. I think this question of the root causes of bullying and violence is so interesting. And I mean, there is so much research on risk and protective factors when it comes to the social ecological level from the individual students, the relational, the peers around it, the adults, the supporting adults, the environments and the digital environments where children are spending their life, and also the whole surrounding thing that I've been talking about now also with the different regulations and laws and so I think Bronfenbrenner's model still work very well on both how we can understand the causes, but also what kind of interventions we need to do. We have put up a guide on this on how to stop bullying, where we put all the root causes together. If you're interested, also on the World Anti-Bullying Forum page. But if I'm going to summarize that it's, more protective factors and fewer risk factors increases the possibilities for a safe and inclusive environment without bullying, and risk factors increases the risk of bullying and are associated with a high prevalence of bullying. So working on the risk and protective factors, I mean, that's a good way also of how to work evidence-based, basically. Okay. But I think also school climate, when we have looked, is something really to address, an important risk or protective factor. And that all comes down to relationship, building supportive, caring relationships among students and school personnel. Such a important thing to do. I'm just going to touch upon, all this, what works and the evidence-based programs. And we do know from research that they are effective, but they are not, super strong when it comes to how effective they are. In average, they are reducing bullying by 15 to 20%, and the effects vary considerably. And that can be partly explained by the national and local conditions of school, as well as low program fidelity. At the last World Anti-Bullying Forum, 2 of the keynote speakers really dived into this. And if you want to understand the limited impact of anti-bullying programs, I just suggest that you look at Kristina Salmivalle and Kevin Runius, who did brilliant pieces of talk about this. But just to, you know, Kristina Salmeva, there's a modest impact. There is recognition gaps. Victimizations aren't really recognized. It's a lot about the implementation issue. I love that research from the Kiva program when they talk about you can have a good program and it's a little bit like having a great vacuum cleaner. But if you never use it, it doesn't matter how good the vacuum cleaner is. It will still be dirty at home. But we should also focus on the success and see this has really done much, but we also should learn from failure. Why isn't it working better? And Kevin, he sees that there is so many levels in the school, in the ecological system, who has to buy into this question. It has to do with moral disengagement. No one really takes responsibility, and the victim is blamed instead. So if we have a supportive leadership that really, and you can enhance that by training and by mapping. So there is something you can make that moves. And also just to look at the numbers of the academic impact, that might be the best argument to why you should work with bullying prevention. Sorry for going a little bit fast, but I just want to go through things. And I think another way of working is to look at all the proven anti-bullying strategies. It's a way that we are working in Sweden. What interventions that seems to be effective in all anti-bullying programs. So I'm just listed them here. It's known from several research projects that look at these components. And I think every school can just also pick and choose a little bit. What are we already doing? Are we mapping, monitoring? Like you mentioned this self-assessment system. How is the research activities? Could we work with them? Could we improve the student involvement or the parental involvement? Or is it organizational programs? Do we need a safety team at our school that takes responsibility for decisions? And how about methods and protocols for handling the single bullying cases? Do we have the same way of working? Are we following up? That improves the situation. So dive into that if you need new ways of working and want to work evidence-based, but don't have an anti-bullying program that you rely on. Okay, there's an excellent also summary from the World Health Organization on what works to prevent online violence against children. And they stress a lot of things, but the things that I took with me is that they say strengthening the skills of children and young people is the most successful thing to do in educational programs. And that made me and friends to look closer at what are these life skills that prevent bullying and online violence against children. Problem solving, help seeking, self-regulation, empathy and perspective taking, assertiveness, self-efficacy, conflict resolution, and of course, bystander defender mobilization. During this year, I've been writing a book. Sorry for this being in Swedish, but I just took the book chapters. And we have written a chapter for children between 9 and 12 on each of these skills to make it easy and accessible for children, parents, and teachers to learn about the skills. And I just want to share that idea also to use these life skills to improve the situation. No violence against children is justifiable. All violence against children is preventable. I think that is so hopeful. It's the base in Article 19, the freedom of violence for children. And I think this gives me hope at least. And we just need to keep on doing this good work. Thank you. Hope I didn't use too much of the time. Thank you very much. And if we are able to discuss, or if there is questions on the chat, Cosmin will decide on the next step. But just if there's someone who wants to ask something later or something, I can also write that to you. Okay.
Thank you so much, Magnus. And in fact, you kept with the time very, very strictly. So right in the 20 minutes that you had, thank you so much for that. And thank you for this very, very interesting presentation. I think some of the colleagues who are now watching the webinar and have registered and asked some questions, I believe they had some very important answers based on your presentations regarding the actual definition of bullying, also the negative effects that it can have in children and young people, and of course also regarding what we can do and the effectiveness of certain programs. I remember that many colleagues were asking about this particular dimension, so I think the presentation was very clear in that sense, and also it allowed us to to think about this phenomenon, and it also paves the ground for the next speakers who are going to bring a more practical perspective. So right next to Magnus, we have Nektarios, who is a school leader from Greece, and I will briefly introduce him to you. So Nektarios is an experienced primary school teacher and has served as the principal of Anos Syros Primary School since 2018. He has 2 master's degrees, one in educational leadership and another in adult education. He has a strong foundation in innovative teaching and administration. Over the years, Nektarios has implemented numerous projects with his students, including e-twinning and STEM initiatives, and his efforts have been recognized with awards and prizes in both national and European contests. Additionally, he has coordinated Erasmus Plus projects and contributed to the creation of content for MOOCs in collaboration with European Schoolnet and the Greek Ministry of Education. Nektarios, the floor is yours, and you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Cosmin. Cosmin, did you see my presentation?
All good, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And my presentation is about tackling bullying and violence as a paradigm from a Greek primary school. As Cosmin already said, my name is Nektarios Farasopoulos. I'm a primary school teacher since 2004. I am currently serve as the headmaster or the principal of Anos Syros Primary School. I am actively involved as an e-twinning and Scientex ambassador, and I try to promote collaborative learning. I have created content for MOOCs with European Schoolnet and the Greek Ministry of Education. Anos Syros is a village on Syros Island that is in the middle of the Aegean Sea. Anos Syros is actually a medieval village. It is here from 1200, so it has almost 1,000 years of history. The student body of our school is around 100 pupils, aged from 6 to 12 years old. And the whole community of the island, Syros, has approximately 25,000 inhabitants during winter, and during summer we have many more, as you know. I will start with the current bullying situation in Greece. Based on a survey that the Ministry of Education here in Greece have performed in 2022, the reported bullying incidents have decreased from 27% to 22% of the students that have at least one incident per week, but the intensity of these cases have increased. So the ministry have implemented many policies in order to prevent bullying and address this situation. They have started a campaign, online and TV campaign, so all the community, the families, the parents, the local authorities can be informed about the campaign against the bullying. Also, with collaboration with other ministers, such as the Ministry for Justice and Ministry of Interior Affairs, the Ministry of Education has created a committee for the national strategy for the prevention and dealing with violence and delinquency of minors. Also, the current law, number 5029, has implemented 3 committees in 3 levels. They start with a national level. There is a special 7-member committee of experts with a role in preventing bullying. We have also a district level, another 4-member committee with action teams, director of education, counselor, psychologist, and social worker. And in every school, we have another committee with 2 persons, the principal and the 1 teacher that is involved for the anti-bullying policy. Also, the ministry has tried to raise the number of psychologists and social workers in schools. Actually, nowadays in Greece, the majority of the school have a psychologist, and a social worker in the school, but usually it's only for 1 or maximum 2 days per week. So we have some extra help, but it's not always enough because the incidents are many, and we cannot have the psychologist the day that we'll need them in the school. Also, we have some platforms for the anti-bullying policy. From 2022, have the old platform, Paratiritirio, and from the last year, 2023, we have the new platform that is called Stop Bullying. In this new platform, there are a lot of systems that can help the policy against bullying. For example, we have a system for capturing incidents of intra-school violence and bullying with named reports of incidents, both from students and from parents, and those who have custody of the students. Also, we have a system for conducting anonymous online surveys to students in order to assess the extent of the phenomenon. Also, we have a system of distance and synchronous and asynchronous teacher training for the teachers that want to learn more about anti-bullying policies. And of course, we have an information system for parents so they can progress the management of the reported incident. Also, by the same law, all the schools have to update their school level regulations. Every school in Greece have to create an operating regulation. Beside all the laws that we have to follow, we have to create an intro school regulation. This regulation should be updated and involve the new rules about the anti-bullying policy. In this area, there was a tightening of pedagogical and disciplinary measures, mostly in secondary schools, with verbal reprimand, early suspension, expulsion, and in very difficult cases, change of section or even change of school. In my school, we try to implement a 3-level approach to anti-bullying policy. So we try to prevent some things. So we have usually activities that we try to involve the students in actions of acceptance with different persons, and joint programs with special education schools that help our students to learn many things. Also, we try to participate in informative actions with experts in these subjects. We have experts come to school to speak to students and help them understand many things by implementing workshops. And also we try to make some expert talks for the families, for the parents, so they can also be have more information about these subjects. During an incident, we try to remain calm. We try to understand what were the reasons and the causes of this incident, and we try to speak with all the participants, all the students involved in a bad situation. We try to make them feel that they are accepted and that it is secure for them to express themselves, even if it is something, even if they have make a bad decision. We try to deal with the incident at this point in the school, and we try to inform as soon as possible the families. So before the children go to home, they have to have our point of view, because sometimes children, when they go back home and they express their feelings, they exaggerate the narration of the events. So the families and the parents have a different aspect of the events. After the incident, we also talk to the families, we talk to the whole class of the students involved, we talk again with the students, and of course we involve the school psychologist and the school social worker to help us to try to make all the students feel better after that happened. About digital tools and cyberbullying. Digital tools in education, of course, increase students' screen time, which, while it is very beneficial for learning, can lead to issues like screen fatigue, sleep disruption, and maybe reducing person social interactions. platforms for online assignments, group projects, and sometimes even social media that is used in school-related communication keeps students on screens longer than potentially fostering dependency on digital interactions. We try to have to give students extra work that will give them time for activities without screens, that they can do things in their free time, so they can reduce the time on screen and have more time off the screen and in-person interactions. The last part of my presentation is about a real-life bullying example that we have before 2 years in our school. We had an experience with a 12-year-old boy that was excluded from the group chat. We had a mobility for Erasmus project in Italy. We have selected 6 students. One of them was a 12-year-old boy. He was very happy for being in the mobility, and after coming back to school, he sent some pictures from the mobility with his group chat of his classroom, and the other students, mostly the boys, felt that he was flexing about his experience, and they expelled him from the group chat, and he felt very bad. And sometimes during the recess, the other boys speak to him not in a good manner. So the school tried to intervene with the individual student and the group with discussions. We informed the parents, and we talked about the risks that this behavior had. As an outcome, we had some improvement in this situation, but the relationship between the students was not fully restored. And this is something that we have to highlight, that sometimes our efforts cannot give a solution to every problem. Sometimes students will have bad relationships, or the relationship will not be as good as we might want. But the school never stops to try and to do whatever we can to improve our work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nectarios, for sharing your experience and also for providing us this overview of the situation in Greece and some of the measures that are taken at national level and ministry level, and then also for clarifying what exactly you are doing in your school to tackle this issue. I think it was a very good continuation of the overview that Magnus provided. Now we got a little bit clearer understanding of what could be done in schools. And we can proceed now to our last 2 speakers who are coming from Portugal, and they represent school psychologists. So we have a different perspective in the webinar, and then we will have at the end the opportunity to engage in the discussion with all speakers. So again, if you have questions, please post them in the chat, and we will have time towards the end of the webinar to have a conversation with our speakers. So now I will introduce to you the next speakers, and let me just share my screen so we can see. I prepared this that we can see the pictures, but I believe that anyway we have our speakers with us today, and you can see them. But let's proceed. So both Eneida and Ruth come from the school cluster Marquês de Marialva in Portugal, and Eneida is a school psychologist, and she has a bachelor's degree in clinical psychology from the University of Coimbra. Previously, she taught at the International University of Figueira da Foz in the bachelor's program in psychology. Since 2000, she has worked at the Ministry of Education, where she has been serving as a senior technician in psychology. Her colleague from the same school, Ruth Rock, currently works also as a school psychologist and for the Ministry of Education for 2 years. And she has a master in clinical and health psychology, systemic and family psychotherapy, also from the University of Coimbra. She has an advanced specialization in school and educational psychology, and she has worked in the past as clinical psychologist in a private clinic, working with children, adolescents, and adults. She is also a trainer in the field of psychology, and she worked at the Portuguese Association of Parents and Friends of Individuals with Intellectual Disabilities and the Research Center for Inclusion, and working with children and adolescents with special education needs. So Eneida and Ruth, welcome, and you have 15 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Sorry, we are having the issue here.
Okay, for the sharing of the screen, you can see the green button, share, and then...
Yeah, because something is happening here. No.
If you don't manage, I can share your
please,
last
if you
version.
don't mind, please. Thank you.
No, that's perfectly fine. Just a second. I see that my colleague is already sharing. Yes, so you can start.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, I'm Eneida. I'm Ruth, and I'm going to start the presentation of our school, Marquês de Marialva School Grouping. The grouping of schools includes preschool, first, second, and third cycles, serving children aged approximately 4 to 15 years old. We have 7 schools from preschool, 8 schools from first cycle, and 1 school from second and third cycles. The school has around 1,700 students. It is located in Cantanhede, as you can see in the map in red. Is near Coimbra, a city of Portugal. Our schools are part of a network of public schools under the Ministry of Education, Science and Innovation. Okay. Talking about Portuguese statistical data about bullying situations from 2020 to 2023, the National Bullying Observatory recorded 627 reports with 460 made by females and 163 by males. The playground was the location where bullying incidents occurred most frequently. The average age of those who suffered from bullying is 13 years old. A higher percentage of victims are female. The average age of those who perpetrate bullying is 13 years old, with a higher percentage of aggressors being male. In 93% of cases, the victims and aggressors were from the same school. Okay, in this graphic, we can see that bullying mostly occurs face-to-face. And the next graphic, we can see the psychological bullying is the most common type of bullying in Portugal. Now I'm going to talk about our project called School Without Bullying, School Without Violence. With this project, we intend to create the necessary conditions to prevent the emergence of new aggression situations, minimize the consequences of such acts for the victims, correct students' behaviors through the adaptation of nonviolent conduct, prevent absenteeism, school dropout, and vandalism, develop good conflict resolution practices, instill attitudes of behaviors of respect. About the team, we have 3 psychologists, 1 nurse, 1 coordinator of the health promotion and education project, 1 coordinator of the multidisciplinary team of inclusion support, 2 schools librarians, 32 class directors, some students referred by class directors as attentive and sensitive to bullying issues, and operational assistants too. About the activities, we conducted intervention sections in classes identified with higher prevalence of bullying cases. The sessions we hold in classes take place once a month with predefined activities, and the goal is to carry out activities on themes of bullying and cyberbullying. Skills such as empathy, conflict resolutions, and social-emotional skills are developed. At the beginning of the sessions, the students create a class logo to work on behavioral expectations. As you can see in the screen, the flower, flexibility, learning well, optimism, work, excellence, and respect. The themes are addressed through fun and practical activities, group dynamics, to ensure that the students are engaged in the sessions. We conducted an awareness session of cyberbullying for parents. The event highlighted the importance of open communications with children, as well as practical tips for identifying signs of cyberbullying and how to respond in case of suspicion. Not as many parents attended the clarification session as we would have liked. What happened is that, for example, during a conversation with parents, they tell us they need these sessions to take place, but then they don't show up. We try to schedule the sessions after working hours. Here in Portugal, there is a bit of culture of people complain, but they don't do much to change it. So it's a challenge to change this mindset. About the training action for operational assistance, the operational assistants in Portuguese schools perform several important functions on a smooth running of the school environment. They maintain the cleanliness and organization of the facilities, including classrooms, hallways, and common areas. They supervise students during breaks, ensuring their safety and well-being. They assist in preparing school activities, such as setting up equipment and distributing materials. They collaborate with teachers and other staff, contributing to a positive educational environment. So we conduct a training session for operational assistance, considering that bullying has a significant impact on mental health. It is important to train non-teaching staff so they can identify and respond to potential bullying situations. We received a distinction called School Without Bullying, School Without Violence. The project was conceived by the psychologists, but followed certain guidelines given by the Ministry of Education, which proposed the implementation of a plan to combat bullying and cyberbullying in schools. So tomorrow we are going to Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, to receive the distinction. Talking about some distinctive elements of this project. The anti-bullying squad is for students to be vigilant about bullying situations and to report these instances to us by filling out the incident report, where they can document the situation, witnesses, location, etc. The complaint is completely anonymous. Only the psychologists have this information. So about the bullying squad, there is no specific training for those who are part of this anti-bullying team. The goal is for everyone to be able to join the team and be aware of what happens during breaks and in the classroom. We believe that being part of this team make them more aware and attentive to themselves and to others. Here is the registry. Here is the incident report form for bullying situations, which includes details like you can see the names with the bullies are, who the victims are, and the witnesses. Now I'm talking about the activity called Act Against Bullying. It was an educational awareness activity on the theme of bullying. The event featured the presentation of the original song of our original song, Act Against Bullying. Throughout the sessions conducted in class, the students created an identifying logo for each class, revealed on this day, which included word phrases related to protective behaviors and prevention of this phenomenon, along with a logo designed by the students themselves. The classes also participated in a group dynamic aimed at promoting teamwork, solidarity, and empathy. The project also has a mascot, a plush frog named Froggy, who made an appearance at the event and charmed the entire school of community. Everyone who participated in this activity wore a t-shirt with our mascot's logo, like you can see in the photos. About the group intervention of bullies, for bullies. After an initial intervention by the psychologists, teachers, and school administration, if the students engages in further aggressive bullying behavior, a group intervention will be proposed to work on social emotional skills. Parental permission is required. Why did the school feel the need to develop this project? We decided it is important to promote safety and well-being to the students, improve mental health and social development. About how I raise awareness action structured, and is there any measurement of their impact? When awareness actions are occasional, we give students a questionnaire via QR code to assess their level of satisfaction and the impact it had on them. We will conduct sessions to promote social emotional skills in 17 classes to reduce bullying situations. The students will answer a questionnaire at the initial stage to assess the current level of bullying. Then they will answer another questionnaire at the end of the school year to determine bullying as decreased as a result of the social-emotional intervention. As psychologists, our experience of addressing bullying and cyberbullying, we did so many things by helping to identify cases of bullying through observations, interviews, and questionnaires. We assess both the aggressors and the victims to better understand the dynamics of the problem, facilitating the direct interventions by mediating conflicts between the students involved. This includes counseling sessions for both victims and aggressors, aimed at promoting empathy and understanding, implementing educational programs and awareness campaigns about bullying for students, teachers, and parents, providing guidance of the effects of bullying and prevention prevention methods, offering psychological support to victims of bullying, helping them develop coping strategies, improve their self-esteem, and enhance social skills. Providing training and resources for teachers and staff on how to recognize signs of bullying and respond appropriately. And collaborating with the school community, including parents, students, and other professionals, to create a support network for bullying prevention. At the last topic, how this project tackles the reproduction of stereotypes and the issue of hatred and hate speech in the school. So in our school, hate speech is not very common. There is not much multiculturalism compared to countries like France or USA. We believe that overall, our students are accepting of new cultures and children with special educational needs. In that sense, fortunately, there is not a strong culture of racism, xenophobia, or homophobia, or something like that. So I finished my presentation now. Sorry for something. I will give the floor to you, because if you have some questions to make.
Thank you so much, Eneida and Ruth, for this presentation. I think it was, again, very complementary with what we have seen before. And I think it's particularly interesting in the project that you have developed in your school, how the team that you set up to participate in this project is made by several school actors. So you have their psychologists like you have the school nurse, you have coordinators of the multidisciplinary teams of health promotion, you have the librarians, you have class directors, operational assistants, and the students referred by class directors as being particularly aware and sensitive to bullying issues. So this diversity of actors involved in the project, I think it's a very important lesson that we can all learn from you. And then the diversity of interventions and activities that you are developing, as we saw these interventions sessions with classes identified with higher prevalence of bullying, so interventions next to the children and young people, but then of course also parents, information sessions that you have for them, and the training action for operational assistance. There is in fact a question in the chat on operational assistance, because these roles, as you know, are different in different countries. So one colleague is asking, who can be operational assistant in Portuguese schools? Are they teachers? So perhaps you would like to clarify this very briefly.
No, they are not teachers. They are workers, okay, not with a college degree. They have the median degree here in Portugal. I don't know how you say in another country. Some years ago, they could work as these assistants workers in here with a low degree, not very high. So basically, anyone can do it.
Okay, so these operational assistants do not
There's
require
there's no specific information for them. They only have to know how to write, to speak, and because they clean the school also, okay? But they take care of some other parts of the students when there's a problem, when they go outside in conflict, and they help with that. But they have a multifunction. I don't know if you can say like that.
Yes, for sure. But then their involvement in this project, can you explain a little bit why it was very important, and why do you think it is important to involve them in the project?
Because they are not in one place only. They are all over the school. So when is the breaks, they can see what happens where the teachers can't see. because they hide themselves in some places to do things they shouldn't be doing. And these assistants, they are like, I don't want to say a police, but more or less, okay? So they watch them and they can see what they are doing, and they are the best people to report those things to us as a psychologist.
Mhm. Okay, thank you for the clarification,
You're
and again, thank you for the presentation. As I was saying, I think this is very important that that we are looking at a project that involves very different actors at the school level and also diverse activities that are designed for these diverse groups. So you are not only tackling children and young people, but also parents, also operational assistants, also the wider school
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I see that we can cluster the questions that we have been receiving in different topics, and one of the core topics that we received in the questions in the chat, but also in the questions that some of you submitted at the time of the registration to the webinar, it's about the role of parents and the role of families. So we have a more general question, let's say, what is the role of the families in the solution against bullying and violence in school, and how can schools involve parents effectively in anti-bullying initiatives? So for this first question, I would give the floor to Nectarios for hearing about his experience in his own school.
Actually, it's very hard to involve the parents in these situations. Some of them do not have the time, or they do not they do not have the strength to be involved in these situations. Others cannot see the real problem that he or she faces with their children because they do not want to admit that his or her children is involved in that kind of situation. So it's very hard in any case. There is no magic solution. We don't have a magic stick to make them change their attitude. We try to be polite. We try to make them feel invited in the school. We try to make them feel that they can express themselves, even if they are totally wrong. Sometimes they are totally wrong, but we give them the space to express themselves, to tell whatever they want, and then we try to explain them how the situation is in fact, and with the help usually from the psychologist and the social worker, we try to give them some aspects of a solution that we have in our mind, how they can help their children, how they can ask help from other organizations beyond school, because as I mentioned before, our school psychologist is just one day per week. We cannot help every student, and we cannot help every student in the amount of help that we want to give. So sometimes the parents should seek for help from other organizations, from the local hospital, from the local municipality that have services that can help families with students in these situations. So we have to be very patient and polite, and sometimes try to forget what we hear every day in the school, and give them time to think what is the best for their students.
Thank you so much, Nectarios, for sharing this account. So in your school, you find it rather difficult to engage parents in effectively fighting this phenomenon of bullying and cyberbullying. And I see that there are some comments also in the chat from colleagues who are referring to the parents that do not accept the school description of the bullying behavior or try to downsize these incidents. And then other colleagues are asking, how do you solve situations when parents of students do not want to cooperate with the school? So Eneida and Ruth, do you have any answer for these questions? How do you engage parents in your school besides the events that you presented? How do you tackle this issue and you overcome these barriers?
We try to responsibilize the parents. As a psychologist, we have main issue. It's if the parents want to solve their kids' problem, they have to involve in them, because the school is it's not we can't substitute the parents' role. So we try, at least we try to make them feel responsible, and they show up at the school. I think the main problem now, it's because they are afraid of being parents. I think this was a long talk about this, but I work for 24 years now with parents, with the children, and I noticed that they are afraid to punish their kids, to say no, a lot of things like that. And so they try that the school makes that role. I will understand what I'm saying. So what we try to do is to involve them. We do here at our psychology service, we do 3 months. It's not a for me, I don't know how you say it, an action for parents, where we teach psychologists, we teach those parents for 3 months every week to apply strategies with their children at home. And the next week, when they come to us, we go to each one of them to see if they applied well, wrong, what could be changed. And that is a thing. I think it's important to do that, because they lose a little bit of that afraid of being parents, I think. So we try.
Thank you so much, Ruth. So do you notice in your work this tendency of parents not being so responsible, let's say, for their children's education, and expecting the school to do so? And as a result, you have these measures in place to engage them, to make them come to the school, and you even have a parent education program, as you were explaining, that every week you provide sessions. So I think this is a very good takeaway and example that you can give for the current conversation. And now I would turn to Magnus for the research. What does research say about the importance of parental involvement, and what about the programs that have been effective in fighting bullying? How important parental involvement was, and how it was made there?
Yeah, thanks a lot. So nice to be part of this conversation. I think parents is crucial when it comes to the prevention of bullying. So I mean, we talk about several things here, but in acute cases when bullying have already occurred, so you want to do interventions because there has been an incident, and of course the role, if there is your child has been bullying others, or if the child is a victim, you will get different responses from parents, of course. I followed. During 2 years when I was at the Stockholm University, I read all the cases that came into the school inspectorate. It's about 400 cases per year, where children has been suffering substantial bullying, and the school hasn't responded in a way that ends that. And those parents could file a complaint to the national authority to say the school hasn't handled this. And though I would say the voices of those parents are really desperate. And we can see that from research when it comes to parents to victimize children, that they, as like some authors write, they turn into an animal. They become so angry and frustrated at the school because they want to protect their child. So I think the stake is kind of high there, and there will almost always in those cases be a breakdown with the collaboration of the school and the parents, so it will become impossible. There's another problem if the child is bullying other children. Then I think the problem that you are mentioning in the chat, and my colleagues here too, is more about putting responsibility away. Because there is always, and I think in the discourse around bullying, there is always a kind of blaming on the parent when the child bullies. We have that, we know that is a risk factor, and I think that we have that in our common sense. So when a parent gets the message that your child is bullying someone, at the same time, the parent probably feel blame. And they put that back on the school, and that's why it's so difficult to have a parent take that kind of responsibility. I think also we know, I mean, this parental relationship to the children is also very, very important. It could be a protective factor if the parent is caring and involved in their child, or it could be a risk factor if the parent is violent or abusive. I think in some cases, offering also parental support or parental training could be a way forward if there is a lack of that. I think there is an overlap also if you look at the research considering teachers' leadership and parenting. The classical model is that you have this like the best practice is the authoritative approach, where you are both warm and kind and also very clear and structured. So you have both kinds. We sometimes talk about setting up the frames and rules and consequences, but also providing love. When you have that combination, it's a very, very strong thing. Regardless if you're a teacher, a school counselor, or a parent, we know that if you can have that kind of relationship qualities with children, the levels of bullying will go low. As you said also, Cosmin, when you look at the bullying prevention programs, they are usually divided into can parent get informed? And like you were saying, Victorious, it's difficult to reach the parents. So at least, I mean, if you do something very simple, putting information in information letters that you send out with email from schools to the parents about this is the situation of bullying at the school. These are things that we are working with. We are talking about with the students about this and that this week. Maybe a question to talk about at home, so that the parents also bring this issue up at home and talk with their children. And on the preventive side, so to say, before anything has happened, so that is an occurring natural conversation, maybe to stress and address the importance that parents also have in this newsletters to parents that a lot of schools have, or during parent meeting, also talk about how you work with promotion and prevention, not just when there is a case that is acute, because then everything becomes so much tension. So I think as a success criteria is to establish cooperation between parents and schools before problems has occurred. And that's then you have a little bit of a buffer when the situation gets ugly in difficult cases. And I think it's not easy to handle, but I think it's crucial to involve parents, especially also since we know that there is no division anymore between cyberbullying and school bullying. It goes on 24 hours a day, and it's present in the home and in school. So in that way, the adult world who is responsible for giving children an upbringing without bullying has the same challenges. And I think the most important is also to involve children, because they have the experience and the solution, also on the prevention and promotion side. So I think it's fantastic to listen to the examples done here also that has all these things. But it's not easy, and there's a lot of failure in this. We know there's some cases that is difficult, that schools and parents don't really succeed in. Kristina Salmivali also touched upon that, and it doesn't seem to care basically if you are very strict or disciplined, or very trying to evoke empathy for the bully who has done this. It could be a mix of those things, but the important thing is that you have a method or follow a set of principles, and everybody's doing the same at the school. And even more important, to do the follow-up. So don't leave cases, follow them up, ask the victim, has this stopped, is it still going on? And schedule that kind of follow-up meetings with children who has been victimized and children who has done this towards others. And there could be a mix of both experiences, of course. So not letting go of them seems to be also an important thing to do. And I think that involves also information to parents, and say, this have happened again, we know this happened, we talked about it again, could you please also do this? But without coming into blaming each other, guilt and blame, then everybody backs off, I think.
Thank you so much, Magnus. I think this is a crucial point for this discussion, because I see some of the comments in the chat that are actually reinforcing this blaming somebody perspective, because indeed we often tend when we have troubles in solving this very complex issue of bullying, to put the blame either on parents, either on students and children, either on the teachers, either on the system or on the school, and then the discussion kind of cannot continue, and the solutions that were previously designed even are not used. As you were saying, I really liked the metaphor that I believe you were quoting somebody with this metaphor of the vacuum cleaner, that it doesn't matter that if you have a very good vacuum cleaner if you don't use it. And I'm sure that in many schools there are so many good measures in place and protocols for how to deal with these situations or how to involve the parents. But then when we enter this confrontative mindset, we end up not using the tools that we have there. So I think this is a very, very important takeaway. And I would like us to approach in the remaining time, because this was also very often referred to in the chat, the difference between bullying and cyberbullying, and the fact that through the online means the walls of the school are not relevant anymore, and even the hours are not relevant, because cyberbullying can happen anywhere and at any time. And there are some questions here concretely, like particular strategies for dealing with online bullying that have proved effective. Are there any such strategies out there? And also another colleague is asking of the fact that now iPhones and the online world is very addictive, and many children and young people become really addicted to this, to their smartphones and to the online world. How we can limit violence in this framework, because sometimes it's difficult to engage them. So I would perhaps go to Eneida and Ruth for this question to see if they have any strategies in place when it comes specifically with cyberbullying. How do you tackle this? And then I will skip Nectarios, because in your school I know that that children are younger, so perhaps this is not so relevant, but feel free to comment if you would like as well. Then I see that you want, and then we come back to Magnus for more evidence on this topic. So Eneida and Ruth, please go ahead.
About cyberbullying, our methods.
Yes,
Oh.
what do you do precisely for this particular aspect? Because as our colleagues in the chat are mentioning, it's much more difficult to deal with cyberbullying as compared to bullying, because there are no barriers. So how do you tackle this in your school, and specifically in the project you presented?
We have a problem, because when the cyberbullying is committed, it's outside the school. So the school is limited normally the parents go to the police, make a report, a complaint. But here at school, the only thing we can do, because we can't act outside the school, we can talk to the victim, talk to the parents, talk to the aggressor, and try to make some actions here to prevent this kind of situations. Includes also some sessions for parents, groups of parents, to prevent, but to act with this question, make I don't know how you say, a complaint, because that student did that to the other, and it was at home in a group of WhatsApp, etc. We can't do much, only act like this, talk and prevent.
Thank you so much for your answer. So you feel that in this particular area, it goes beyond the school
The school.
capacity to act, but what do you do is you have preventive programs in place and some training and raising awareness activities. So this is, again, very good point for the colleagues to consider. So let's hear from Nectarios, who comes from a primary school. So the issue there, perhaps it's slightly different. And if you have also strategies to deal with this issue, please let us know, Nectarios.
Unfortunately, we have the same problem also because nowadays students from 8 or 9 years old, they have their own mobile devices, so they use many apps. Some of them are using even social media from the year 9 or 10. So it is very hard for the school to modify all this work of the students, because it's not our responsibility to check the students what they do in the afternoon or in the weekends. But many times the things that occur from these situations come back to the school, because if they have a fight online on WhatsApp or Viber or whatever, the next day they come on the school and there is a tension between some students. So we have to address this problem sometimes. Also, there is another problem with students online gaming, especially the boys. They play many violent games, and also they speak to each other through the game. Even they don't have social media, they have instant messaging apps inside the game. So some of them are flexing, I'm very good, and some of them are making them feel bad for their playing activities, for their playing, for their what they do online. So also there is a problem for us. What we try to do is information, both for students and for parents. For students, it's easier because we have all the students every day in school. So we call experts in the school. They talk to them about the online safety rules and everything they have to know. But also we try to do some afternoon talks for parents with experts, but the attendance rate is very low because we have very few parents attending these workshops, and most of them are already very keen of all this situation, and they are good enough to address all these problems. The parents that will benefit the most from these workshops, they do not attend them, so they keep not doing what they have to do.
Thank you so much, Nectarios, for sharing the challenges that you have in your school, but also some solutions. I really like the fact that you acknowledge that even though this happens outside the school, then the impact that it has on children and young people is clearly visible in the school, and it is also the role of the school to act upon it. And the strategies that you mentioned are relevant, even though sometimes it's not very easy to engage all the actors that should be engaged. So now we are 1 minute after our time, but we can prolong the webinar for a few more minutes just to listen to Magnus also reply and to mobilize some of the evidence from research and existing anti-bullying and especially cyberbullying programs. So Magnus, I would ask you to wrap up, let's say in 2 minutes, if possible.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. I mean, basically, school bullying and online bullying, they are so interconnected, and we know that students are bullied by students online, so to say. So it's a matter of the school. In Sweden, we have the law says that if it's affecting the school and the learning, it's the problem of the school, so to say. So I think really schools also need to do things here, and we know from those both bullying and cyberbullying programs that if you address both these issues when you work with bullying prevention for both these types, it's actually effective. So I think schools is that place, and you also need to involve young people. It's hard to reach to parents. We have tried for it and also have been successful in reaching parents through telephone companies. So when parents buy the first phone to their child, they have to go through training we provide them training, an easy app that the telecom company provide to parents. So maybe also we need to work in the broader community and the broader societal community. I think also regulation, but that more on the EU level, to make digital spaces safe for children. Very important. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Magnus, for this. And unfortunately, we could stay for another hour because we would have a lot to talk about, but we have reached the end of the webinar. So I would like to thank all the speakers for their insightful contributions and for this interesting discussion. Also to all webinar attendees, at some point, I'm happy to announce that we were around 450 people here listening to this webinar. So this is a great result. And just to let you know that we will have another webinar on November 20 on depolarizing dialogue and how to diffuse tensions in education. And yet another very important topic and very much connected to what we discussed today. And I placed the link in the chat. And also to inform, in case you did not see in the chat, that you will receive a follow-up survey to this webinar. And in this survey, you can indicate if you need a certificate of participation, and you will receive such a certificate, as well as all the information regarding the webinar, such as the webinar recording and the presentations that were made today will also be available to you. So then you have links to the different resources that were shared. So you can take this as a training opportunity and dive deeper into these resources that will be made available to you. So thank you all again, and I wish you a great afternoon.